I love it when areas have models just like this. You can see the entire city of Beit Shan. And of course, this helps you to understand, but what if I could just show you the real thing?
Beit Shan, also known as Scythopolis within the scriptures, is one of the most amazing places to visit today to learn about the Romans, what they built, and how they lived in their daily lives. Now, this location is far too big for me to go through every single aspect of it, but we're going to go through a few locations that give you a great idea of what this city was actually like, and hopefully give you some knowledge about how the Romans lived during the time of Jesus.
While this city is massive, this isn't even the entire thing. Beit Shan is actually a modern day city, and so many of these buildings that we see in this city are actually on top of ruins that we're seeing here. This city would have been huge and expansive, going all across and having a massive wall around the entire thing. Now, today we're going to look at a couple of key features from this city in particular, but we're also here to talk about some biblical things, because while Beit Shan isn't really mentioned in scriptures, we know that Scythopolis, which is the city's name in the time of Jesus, was a huge part of it. But even before then, during the Old Testament, we have a pretty big event that actually happens here, not in the Roman city, but up on that hill up there. So stick around to the end of this video to find out what actually went on up there with Saul and even King David. Every time we take a group here, it's always like exploring Disney World for the first time. You're kind of hot and sweaty, you're moving around, this is a massive location, so you have to kind of walk all over the place, but it is one of the most special. And that is not necessarily because it's hugely biblically important, but because it gives you such a great idea of what the early Romans were like. A lot of this is 1st century or earlier. This city is actually one of the oldest cities in this area, period. The very starts of it happened long before Christ. But first, let's check out this building because it's way more impressive on the inside than the outside. Let's go in. Welcome to the theater. This is where entertainment would happen and still does happen from time to time. They do actually night shows here, doing different like light shows and things on the ruins of Beit Shan. But obviously this would have been where performances would have taken place, right down here. Maybe certain speeches or declarations would happen right down there. You can see that above me is a second deck that is more deteriorated, and then the bottom deck is definitely still intact for the most part. I'm always so in awe of how they were able to build these things even back, thousands of years ago. Without the equipment that we have now, it seems like we're making less and less beautiful things, but this is amazing for sure to see this.
The Beit Shan theater overall would have been a central point to the Roman theater during at least as early as the 2nd century. This was a major point of Scythopolis and would have been an attraction far and wide for people to come here and to see what was actually going on here. The theater could hold approximately 7,000 spectators, and during its heyday, the theater hosted a variety of performances, including dramatic plays, musical events, and possibly even gladiatorial contests. Really interesting stuff.
Now let's head over to the main street of this section of Beit Shan. Just like in our major cities today, we have a main street here in Beit Shan. You can see that it stretches all the way down to the end of the road here, and you have this massive row of columns that would have been so beautiful to see in its heyday. Obviously, there's been an earthquake that destroyed most of the city later on after the resurrection and ascension of Jesus. But even this, in its ruinous state, is a beautiful sight, looking down this main street right here and up into the old city of Beit Shan that's on top of that hill right there. Now, this street was actually a Byzantine street that was made after the Romans by the Byzantines, and you can see that it's pretty much warped and destroyed all over the place. However, it is really cool design. You can see that these pavers actually go diagonally in order so that chariots and carts and different things wouldn't get stuck in the grooves in the street. Also, just like our streets today, we see that there's a slight bend to the sides. I'm sure it's exaggerated now because of the earthquakes and different things, but we can see that there's a bend to the side, and that would be because water would then shed to the sides of the street, making sure that it wouldn't pool up in the middle of the street here. Beit Shan truly is one of the most memorable places that you'll go on a tour. And if you want to go on a tour, you can come with us in December, or you can actually go through Imagine, ittworld.com. Imagine Tours and Travels is one of the best tour companies to the Holy Lands, and they've been doing it for a very long time. They can take you to Israel, Greece, Rome, a lot of different places within Europe to talk about the Reformation. They're working on a ton of different trips right now. So you can just go to their website, ittworld.com, and you can check out any of those trips that are going, including our trip that's going in December. So if you want to come to Israel with me and Vanessa and learn about what we're talking about here, then you can come with us then. And I've tried to make that trip as cheap as possible. Anyway, check out ittworld.com, and thank you so much to Imagine for helping us make this trip possible. Next up is this area right here. This is the bathhouse. This is very indicative of a Roman society for sure. They would have always had a big bathhouse like this where all the men could come and congregate, work out, bathe, and just hang out. It was a place where people would just meet and talk and discuss different philosophies and different things like that. So let's jump in here and let me show you the inside of this. As you can see, much of this bathhouse is still intact, and it gives us a really good idea of how they would have used it and what was actually going on here. Now, we have lots of examples of this throughout the Roman Empire, and especially here in Israel, all the different Roman cities that are just like this, and even smaller versions or different versions or things that are similar to this that we can kind of compare to in order to study and see exactly what is going on here. Now, what you're looking at here is actually through the floor of the actual floor where it would have been in this ancient bathhouse. You can actually see the floor over here that would have extended out across this entire space. So what are we looking at here? What are these pillars? Well, this is actually a system in order to heat the water. This wasn't just a cold bathhouse where you came and you sat in a cold pool with everybody else. This is a warm bathhouse where you would be able to basically heal your aches or be able to wash yourself or just be able to hang out with some bros in the hot tub, right? And so you can imagine hundreds of men are in here, just hanging out, working out, or being in these tubs here, these massive tubs that would have been in these rooms here. And they would have been heated by steam going through the floor. So that's where the steam would travel through these pillars here in order to heat up the water and heat up the floor of this bathhouse. And right here is where they would have workers or maybe slaves stoke this fire in order to make sure that all the pools were warmed in this area. And behind you, there's even a public restroom right next to the bathhouse to make sure that everybody was taken care of right here in this place. I'll show you a more intact bathroom in just a second.
Let's go over some of the smaller things that I won't have time to get into in this video fully. First off, here's a baptismal that's found in Beit Shan, showing that later on the Byzantines and Christians that were here actually used this as a place of worship and to do different things. So right near the bathhouse is a baptismal. That's very, very cool. You can also see the rest of the city lies in ruins. This is because there was a large earthquake that came after Christ's ascension and actually destroyed most of the city. We see some pretty good examples of that with these large pillars that have been knocked over and have been left in place by the people that have been excavating this city. Some of them are massive, and I can't imagine how the Romans and the Byzantines would have put these in place. It's really, really impressive. We can also see here a market square where there would have been different vendors and different things set up in this area right here as well. Overall, you can totally imagine how people would have lived here on a daily basis, going to the market, then to the bathhouse, and then to the theater to see announcements or for events. There's so much here that just seems like a normal city, and that's exactly what it was, one of the largest cities in the Decapolis.
Now, while I can't show you everything, I had to show you this specific room within Beit Shan, because of course it's going to be the one that you guys want to see the most, and that would be the Roman bathroom. Now, of course, this room would have been enclosed for privacy, but you don't actually have much privacy, do you? There would be as many as 25, 30, maybe even 50 people in here at the same time, doing their business at the same time right here in this bathroom. You would have a stream that would flow in this canal behind me, and it would flow out just like a sewage system, and that was really, really smart of them to do. You also had this canal in front of you, I believe, either to wash your hands or to use a leaf and a stick as a form of tissue paper. And in the center of this floor, you would see different entertainers that would come in for the express purpose of just kind of getting your mind off of this situation that you're in with everybody else. Now, during the time of the Romans and even later periods, it wasn't a big deal at all to be naked in front of people. And so I'm sure many people would have gotten totally used to this. But for us today, this is a bit strange.
Now, I told you to stick around to the end if you want to learn more about Beit Shan from an Old Testament point of view. There are a few things that are actually really important about this city that have nothing to do with the Romans or the Byzantines or even the time of Jesus. See, Beit Shan has been a place, a city, for a really long time, all the way back to the 15th to the 12th centuries BC, long before Jesus was born. Actually, it was given to the tribe of Manasseh in the Israelites when they entered the Promised Land, and then after this, one of the most famous things about this city overall was actually that they hung Saul's body from the city walls. This happens in 1 Samuel chapter 31, as we see that the Philistines, who controlled the city at the time, actually found Saul and his 3 sons. They cut off his head, stripped off his armor, and sent messengers throughout the land of the Philistines to proclaim the news in the temple of their idols and among their people. They put his armor in the temple of the Ashtoreths, and they fastened his body to the wall of Beit Shan. This is where Saul's body was hung after he was killed. This very location right here.
I hope you've been enjoying this series so far. We're trying really hard to get this out to you as soon as we possibly can. Of course, I want to hear your thoughts about Bet Shan in the comments down below. What did you think was cool? What did you think was interesting? And what did you learn from this video? And as always, subscribe, like, and share this video if you really found value in it. Anyway, we'll see you on the next one. Peace.